Where am I gonna put my cup?
Yeah, I know.
I think we might have to look at that. Get a couple of that.
I would love to be the Maytag repairman of the planning industry and always sit in a nice empty room without
Yeah.
people coming to be
I'm
angry
gonna
with me.
record. I'm gonna record. 'Cause we need to- Okay, Mr. Chair, we do have quorum, so there's no reason to, we might have other members join us, but we do have quorum to start, so we may as well begin.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining our meeting. Now, you did tell me there's nobody in the hall,
Just Paul.
just Mr. Paul. Okay. So if anybody is listening or on Zoom, please wait for your turn to address yourself and give your name and address to the clerk so we can add you in the minutes of our meetings, please. And if any questions are made in French, we'll gladly take it and continue from there. The Committee of Adjustment is a
Quasi judicial.
quad. Yes, thank you, Madam Clerk. So we'll should we continue? Number one, the declaration of pecuniary interests. Everybody have any? If not, we'll continue on. Number two, the addendum of the and agenda. The adoption of the minute. To have
I'll take a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda, please. I only have two. For now, I'll just assume it's those two because you're chairing. It is
All right.
moved by Kathleen Thorne and seconded by Roch Saint-Louis. Be it resolved that the agenda for the West Nipissing Committee of Adjustment meeting on March the 14th, 2023 be adopted as presented.
Everybody in favor? Passed. So we'll move on to number four, the agenda, the agency comments. Do we have any comments from the agencies? Yes.
We're at the, sorry, Mr. Chair, we skipped the minutes.
Okay, that's right. We need to adopt the minutes.
It is moved by Kathleen Thorne and seconded by Roch Saint-Louis. Be it resolved that the minutes of the West Nipissing Committee Adjustment meeting held on January the 30th, 2023 be adopted as presented.
Everybody in favor? Passed. Okay, so the applications, the agency comments.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the agency comments are a summary of the comments of the various I see that Mr. Anderson is with us now, so mark him present.
Okay,
So the agency comments are a compilation of all of the agency comments that we've received on all of the files. So if we run up against any of the comments during the course of one of these, we can certainly address it.
okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the applications. So then, number one, CO8 23, Laverne, Omer and Carole.
Okay,
Do I get a mover? So it'll be,
Roch? It is moved by Kathleen Thorne and seconded by Roch Saint-Louis. Be it resolved that the consent application made by Omer and Carole Laverne for the creation of a new lot at 1011 Stewart Road in the West Nipissing Municipality be approved on the conditions following: that a reference plan be prepared, that taxes be paid, that conditions be met before March 15th, 2025, that a transfer be submitted, and then that The municipal clerk shall, pursuant to section 65(1), instruct the municipal engineers to apportion the assessment for drainage maintenance on the McMillan drain, and that the property shall be rezoned from A1 agriculture to RU rural in accordance with the land designations in the West Nipissing official plan. Through you, Mr. Chair, this matter was, the recommendation on this was deferred at the last meeting because I had not had an opportunity to consult with the West Nipissing Agriculture Advisory Committee.
All right.
Subsequent to that, I have had a meeting with the committee who have expressed no concerns with the proposed application, given that the land that is proposed to be severed is located in the rural zone of the West Nipissing official plan, not the agriculture zone. The north half of the property is not designated agriculture, so the committee had no concerns with that. So that is where we are with that.
Okay. Any comments from Mr. Paul?
All bedrock and bush, not farmland. Other than that, I think it's all been said.
Okay. Any questions from our panel? I see none. So I can bring it to the
Call to a vote.
vote. Everybody in favor? Okay, passed.
Okay.
So we'll move on to number 2, C1923, Mahadeo, Ellen.
I'll take a mover and a seconder, please, Mr. Chair.
Campbell, you're in? Campbell and Mr. Reck.
It is moved by Campbell Anderson and seconded by Rox St. Louis. Be it resolved, the consent application made by Helen Madeo for the creation of a new lot at 125 McDonald Road in the West Nipissing municipality is approved in the following conditions: that the reference plan be prepared and deposited in the registry office, the taxes be paid, the conditions be met before March 15th, 2025, that a transfer deed be submitted to the municipality, and that any portion of the municipally maintained road located on either the severed or retained lands 10 meters from center line be conveyed to the municipality. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a fairly straightforward severance. The property is located on McDonald Road in the West Nipissing municipality. It lies south of the Veuve River. You'll see from the key map. What is being proposed here is to sever off one lot having a frontage of 60 meters and a depth of 420 meters from the parent parcel with a retained parcel of having 306 meters of frontage. The severed and the retained are both well in excess of the minimum requirements for the rural zone. No concerns with this application.
Okay, any questions from our panel? Okay, Madam Maya?
Just on the drawing there,
Mhm.
one end that faces onto the Veuve River has it marked at 306 meters, and the McDonald Road end has it marked at 198. Is it an irregular shaped lot?
I
or-
believe that it's 198. I think 306 is the aggregate of the total frontage on the property. That would be a typo.
But that would still only
It would still meet.
260.
That's correct. I'll just grab the.
I'm sorry. It's
No,
just
no,
that
that's
the numbers
okay.
inconsistent.
The sketch that was submitted with the application was a little confusing, so we redid it, and it's entirely possible that we picked up yes, 306 is the aggregate of the whole
Frontage
frontage,
alone?
yes, and 60 is being taken off, so that's correct.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
more
it. Thank you,
questions?
Mr. Chair.
Any more questions from our panel? Any questions from our viewing audience? As I see not, we'll bring it to a vote. Everybody in favor? Okay, passed.
Next application, I'll take a mover and a seconder for file number C2023.
2023, Patro,
Campbell?
Walter Patro.
Campbell? It is moved by Campbell Anderson and seconded by Kathleen Thorne. Be it resolved that the consent application made by Walter Potro for the creation of a new lot at 43 Riding Stable Road in the West Nipissing Municipality is approved in the following conditions. That a reference plan be prepared, that the property taxes be paid, that all conditions be met on or before March 15th, 2025, that transfer deed be submitted to the treasurer for, secretary treasurer for the certificate of consent, and that written acknowledgement be provided to the West Nipissing Municipality concerning the unmaintained, unassumed status of Riding Stable Road. Through you, Mr. Chair, this application, this file, this owner has had 2 prior severances. You'll see the part 1 south of the lands to be severed on plan 36R14709, as well as the part 1 in the northeast corner, which has yet to be finalized. This is the third and last permitted severance for this property. The property is located on Riding Stable Road. The proposed lot, as you see, has a frontage of 61 meters and an area of 4.8 hectares, sufficient for the rural zone. Other than the fact that this property is located on Riding Stable Road, which is not a municipally maintained road, our policy is to obtain written acknowledgement from the proponent prior to giving the consent that they are aware of the fact that that's the case.
Okay, any questions or from Mr. Goodridge?
No, sir.
Okay, very straightforward, and like you say, this has to be the last one for that's allowed to sever. Any questions, Mr. Don?
I think Mr. Don has a question.
Yeah, just a question on the remarks in the table from the fire chief.
I'm not sure what you're referring to, Mr.
Your schedule that when you send it out to everyone, there are comments.
Oh, are there comments? Okay, my apologies that there were comments from the fire chief. What did he have to say?
Limited emergency response depending on
Yes.
season.
Yes.
But
So
did
that's,
or none? I am a little concerned with that one.
well, it depends on the status of the road. As we all know, Riding Stable Road is plowed during the winter, but we do have other unassumed, unmaintained roads that are not, so that's a standard comment. Because we do have unmaintained roads that we can't get to. This one, we know is.
We know
it's
we can
maintained.
get to it.
We know we can get to this one, but I believe that's just a standard comment for all unmaintained, unassuming roadways.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else from our viewing people? No? Okay, any comments
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
from our panel? Madam
Sorry,
Maya,
just
go
be-
ahead.
Because we're new, I just want to be clear on this. So the comments from the fire chief and the agreement that they will sign acknowledging that the road is unmaintained, even though you say Riding Stable Road is plowed at this point.
But not by us.
Okay. So even though you've just said that, we know we can get there.
Yes,
It
the
just
road
concerns me
is
that in a
the
meeting, we're saying
Yes,
something other than what's being mentioned in the comments,
That is
because we don't want the liability
No.
if we are unable to attend
that is
for
correct.
an emergency because we do not maintain the road.
That is correct.
And so the acknowledgement they're signing, whether we expect that there will be access, we cannot guarantee it, right?
That is correct. Thank
Okay,
you, Madam.
I just want to be
No,
like
when I,
super
when I
clear
said
on
it is
stuff like that.
maintained, it is in fact kept open by an entity that owns property farther north,
Okay,
but it is not maintained by the West Nipissing municipality.
okay,
And there are a number of year-round homes further north from this site as well.
Mhm.
So even if the entity above, there's aggregate operations, timbering operations that do tend to keep the road open.
Yeah.
But even in the years when they're not extracting,
Yeah.
then the private owners get together to chip in the money for the maintenance.
But
for
it
the
is not
plow.
the responsibility of the municipality.
No, not at all.
To keep that road open, and that's the understanding with the consent, right?
That is correct.
It
Thank you.
actually started out as a federal government road way back when.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodridge. If there, is there any other comments? None from our panel, so we'll bring it to a vote. Everybody in favor? Passed.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to number 4, C-2123, Doug
With your permission-
in the Ralong case.
With your permission, Mr. Chair, if we could present item C-2123 as well as MV 2023-03
Yeah,
concurrent
with minor
because they're
variance.
concurrent. They're concurrent applications. With your permission, I'll present them together if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll read in both resolutions. The resolution for the severance, I'll need a mover and a seconder.
Madam Meyer, Mr. Rack,
And I'll use the same for the minor variance. It is moved by Kathleen Garchon and seconded by Roxanne Louis. Be it resolved that the consent application made by Doug and the Roland case for the creation of a new lot on Forget Avenue in the West Nipissing municipality is approved on the following conditions. That a reference plan be prepared and deposited, that all property taxes be paid, that all conditions be met on or before March 15th, 2025, that a transfer deed be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, and that in the event that any portion of this be maintained and traveled road located on either of the severed or retained lands, that 10 meters from center line be of the maintained and traveled road be conveyed to the municipality. And with regard to the minor variance, it is moved by Kathleen Rochon and seconded by Roxanne Louis. It is the decision of the Committee of Adjustment to approve the minor variance application made by Doug and the Roland case to reduce the minimum lot frontage from 60 meters to 52 meters for the following reason. It meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan, meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The variance is considered desirable for the appropriate development, and in the opinion of the committee, the variance sought is minor in nature. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a lot of record existing in River Valley on Forget Avenue. It actually has frontage on both Forget and on the provincial highway. No,
No, you've got the railway in between.
that's
Yeah, the
correct.
railway. Yep.
The access to this property, though, is from Forget Avenue,
Correct.
and that is the intention. As the railway is on the back and the highway is on the back, but they are in between. In any event, this is a lot of record. The intent is to sever this land. They have the sufficient lot area, but just due to the configuration of the lot, they are a little shy on lot frontage. And as such are seeking a minor variance for the reduction in the lot frontage from 60 meters to 52 meters. Other than that, the proposal meets all of the objectives of the West Nipissing official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, anything to add, Mr. Goodridge?
Sir,
I see the adjoining properties are even smaller, so I think it's less of a problem to have them at 52 meters.
that's correct.
Yeah, it like, as I said, it's a lot of record that's pre-existing. And you're right, many of the other lots are considerably smaller. I believe that Mr. Anderson had a question.
Go ahead, Campbell.
No, I didn't have a question. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I thought I saw your hand. My apologies.
Any other questions from the panel? Okay, Madam Maya?
So the current zoning is R1,
That's correct.
so they're service lots, like.
No.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in our communities of living, River Valley, I think that's just the two of them. There were some pre-existing R1 properties, even though they have no services in any of those areas. So when our new zoning bylaw was created in 2014, we couldn't take away that R1 status. So
Okay.
yes, they're unserviced R1, so they function pretty much the same as rural residential in terms of permitted uses, but they are actually zoned R1.
So the minimum lot size is consistent with the R1 zone?
Yeah, R1 zoning, unserviced is 4,000 square meters.
Okay, and these are, well, I mean, they're, that's it, that's all. I just thought it was strange to have an R1 in River Valley, so.
We had, like I said, River Valley and Living, because they were tiny communities before.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any more questions from our panel? Any questions from our audience? I don't see any, so therefore I'll bring it to a vote. Is everybody in favor for both of the applications, the minor variance and the application to consent? Everybody in favor? Okay, passed. Welcome, Mr. Jonathan.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
We'll move on. We'll move on to number 5. Application C4122. The
Okay.
amendment to provisional consent.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to preface the next 2 applications, these are both applications which were previously granted consent and subsequent to granting have changed their mind about the actual configuration of the lots being sought. So we're back here just to confirm that just to basically make sure that everybody's on the same page. So the first application is for Stephen Gilmet on Trace Road. I'll need a mover and a seconder, please.
Okay, Mr. Joel and Campbell.
I'm sorry, whom, Campbell?
Yeah.
It is moved by Roxanne Louis and seconded by Campbell Anderson, whereas provisional consent was granted on July the 11th, 2022 for the creation of 2 new lots in the amount of 1 hectare. And whereas the owners are requesting an amendment to the provisional consent to enlarge the proposed lots from 1 hectare to 4 hectares, be it resolved that the amended provisional consent be granted on the following conditions, which are the same as the original: that a reference plan be prepared, the taxes be paid, the conditions be met before March 15th, 2025, that a transfer deed be issued for certificate of consent, that the municipal maintained roadway be conveyed. The municipal clerk shall instruct the drainage engineer to apportion the assessment for the Cochane drain, and that pursuant to section 5326, notice of the change conditions is not required as the change is minor in nature. 3, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Go ahead, finish off.
Okay, sorry. 3, Mr. Chair, this is fairly straightforward. The lots were intended to be 1 hectare, which would place them with the rural residential permitted uses. They've been upsized to 4 hectares, which would meet the requirements of the rural zone. So that's the only change.
Which is part 1 and part 2 on that plan?
That's correct.
Okay, so is part 1 and part 2 become 1?
No, those
No?
are the
Okay.
parts.
Okay,
They were originally intended to be smaller, and it's my understanding that there was a decision to make them larger, and then back here, we're basically just ratifying to make sure that all the dots connect.
okay. Any questions from our panel? No? Any questions from our audience? I see none, so I'll bring it to a vote. Everybody in favor? Okay, continue. Passed. So we'll move on to number 6. Same thing, C2421,
Yes,
amendment to provisional consent.
that's correct. It is moved. I need to move it in a second, please. It is moved by Roxanne Louis and seconded by Kathleen Rochon, whereas provisional consent was granted on April the 13th, 2021 for the creation of 2 new lots having a proposed area of 7.5 hectares and 4.4 hectares respectively. And whereas the owners are requesting an amendment to the provisional consent to reduce the lot area of both lots to 3.2 and 3.5 hectares respectively. Be it resolved that amended provisional consent be granted on the conditions that a reference plan be prepared and deposited, that all property taxes be paid, that conditions be met on or before March 15th, 2025, and that the consent be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. 3, Mr. Chair, this application is fairly similar to the one that preceded it. Initially, one of the lots was to be quite a bit larger than the other and on-site due to physical site constraints and just for general continuity, the decision was made that it would be better to have the two lots to be pretty much the same size and line up with the lot line of the abutting property. So what is being sought here is just to have that change ratified by the committee because it is a change from what was originally granted.
Okay, perfect. Nice straight lines there, Mr. Goodrich. That's very good.
Thank you. The spirit of Norm lives on.
We like symmetry.
That's right. Any questions from our panel? No, straightforward. No questions from our audience, so I'll bring it to the vote. Everybody in favor? Okay, passed.
Okay. Now we move on to the exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Another
Sure.
application.
Number one, certificate of cancellation, C-5310.
Take a mover and a seconder, please.
mover.
Mr. Chair.
Ruck and Campbell.
It is moved by Roxanne Louis and seconded by Campbell Anderson, whereas a certificate of consent was given on May the 13th, 2011 for the lands described as part of Lot 8 Concession B, being parts 4 to 6 on Plan 36R13044 in the Township of Springer. And whereas the two properties have now been purchased by a single owner, and whereas the owners are requesting a certificate of cancellation of the consent granted in order to consolidate the lands into one parcel, be it therefore resolved that a cancellation certificate be granted to pursuant to Section 5345 of the Planning Act for the lands described as part of Lot 8 Concession B, being parts 4 to 6, Plan 36R13044 in the Township of Springer. And be it further resolved that the certificate of cancellation shall provide that subsection 50 sub 12 does not apply in respect of the lands, and that subsection 50 sub 3 and 5, as the case may be, applies to any subsequent conveyance, which simply means that because they're putting them back together, if they want to take them apart again, they got to come back and reapply.
Okay. Any
So
questions
in-
from our, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to preface that this is fairly new. We're probably going to see a few more of these as we go along. So basically, if you sever a lot, it used to be that once consent, always consent. It was severed forever and ever, and there was no legal means by which to put them back together. So in this case, this individual, he would have had to do something to change the description of the lands in order to do what he wants to do, because in this case, he wants to build basically on the lot line of the two properties, and he wouldn't be able to get a permit nor a septic permit because you can't cross a lot line with septic. So in this case, now that we have this new legislation that permits us, the old consent is canceled, and therefore it is now just back the way it was in the first place.
Okay, go ahead, Madam Maya.
Okay, so we're looking at parts 4, 5, and 6 on the map.
That's correct.
So part 5 is Canal Road.
Yes.
So can you explain that?
That
Is
actually-
that still a private,
It-
like,
no.
is it private through that area?
No, that
or
is
why
act-
is that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That is actually, the original certificate was given for parts 4, 5, and 6.
Mhm.
Part 5 was subsequently transferred out to the municipality,
Okay.
but I do have to cite the original parts for which the consent was granted. But
Okay.
subsequent to that, on another file,
Mhm.
that piece was transferred out, and we actually,
So we own that
We
piece,
do.
so now this will pull those two pieces back together, but it's still split
That's
into by the municipally owned road.
that's correct.
Okay, that was the clarification I wanted, because it didn't make
I
sense
should
that
have
we
actually
didn't.
made a note in my stuff, but yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Okay, and do we own all of the road along there now, like through all of the severances that were done? Like, do we own part 2, part 5, part 8, and part 11?
Along that stretch, yes.
Okay, thank you.
There are some spots along Canal Road where they haven't
It's
done
still-
any planning act applications, but by and large, we've collected up most of Canal Road over the last 15 years
Okay,
or so.
okay, thank you. That's my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any more
Yeah.
questions from our panel?
Sorry, just one thing that I thought of. Do they also own lots 1, 2,
You
and
speak
3?
up, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, what other lands do they own other than 4 and 6?
They, let me grab the file here. They actually own, hold on a second. Where is my? I could have put it up on the screen too. That would have helped too. So they actually own, on this particular plan, they own 4, 6, 7, and 9. And they also own part of the lands to the south, which is that part 3. They own the north part of the part 3, which was added as a lot addition to the part 6 a few years ago.
Okay, and is that the line where they're planning on building on?
The line
Is
where they're
9?
planning on building is between the part 6 and part 9.
No, that explains why they don't need a cancellation certificate on that.
You don't need to cancel a lot
Because
addition.
Because it's a lot addition, yes. You answered my question, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Any more questions from our panel? No, I guess it's straightforward also, so I'll bring it to a vote. Everybody in favor? Okay, passed. We will move on to our last request for. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out through you, Mr. Chair, when I realized just before the meeting that I had uploaded the wrong recommendation sheet into the agenda, which is entirely my mistake. So on your desk, and then for your sake, Roger, and for Campbell's sake, the new recommendation based on the information provided by the consultant, it is recommended to be granted, not refused, as it showed in the application. So you have before you, I think Mr. Goodrich had provided a fairly comprehensive explanation of what transpired at the last meeting and my understanding of the property based on the title documents and the impact information that I had at hand, which has subsequently been brought to my attention is different, and it's correct. So I had recommended against the severance at the last meeting based on the fact that the properties were merged into one, and in fact, that has been determined to not be the case. And that the subject property is actually held by the same owner, but in a different circumstance of ownership than the abutting lands. So they are not merged. They are considered a lot of record, and therefore the policies of our official plan do apply, because they state that a lot of record may have up to 2 severances owned, and because although it's kind of a roundabout way of getting around having to do a plan of subdivision, it does meet the policies, and then therefore, well, I can't recommend against it.
Correct. Any questions from our panel? No, go ahead, Campbell.
Just for education's sake, this application, they're able to get around the 3 severances based on switching the title to a different business name or whatever the case may be. That's where we're at.
Well, they didn't switch it. They purchased it that way, and they did it at a time, but our records here at the municipal office didn't reflect that 0.1 ownership of the other entity that's on title. So they own it in 99.9% by one individual or by a corporation, and a 0.1% by an individual owner, which is sufficient to create a difference in ownership. So therefore, it's by law, it's the same as if you owned it instead of the related parties. But yeah, it's a bit of a workaround, and a lot of companies and do that because they don't want them to merge together, because then they have to come back and ask to be severed. But our MPAC records wasn't reflecting that 0.1 ownership. Even the registry office isn't showing it because it's in the red. So I was under the impression that it was all in the same ownership. That's why I had recommended against it.
Perhaps I can add too, the policy is for severances from a parcel of record, not just from the original lot itself. So, and then that policy though supports investment into West Nipissing. So people will invest in West Nipissing, purchase the land, knowing that they also are entitled to 2 or 3 severances in the rural area. In this case, it's also being done to permit farming of the good agricultural land that's on the land, while removing the non-arable lots from the property. So it benefits the farm community. To me, it benefits the municipality, and it creates investment opportunities in the municipality. So it's a policy that's worked very well in the past, and I think it's something that, in my opinion, should be kept.
And in the, just for information's sake, when we redo the West Nipissing official plan, that is a policy that if we, we want to look at differently or whatever, that'll be an opportunity to do so. Council feels the need to change that, but as it stands right now, the proposed severance does meet the policy of the official plan and the zoning bylaw.
And it is zoned rural, it's not zoned agricultural.
It is rural.
Perfect. Any questions from, any other questions from our panel? No? Okay, because I also had called Mr. Goulet and Goodridge to clarify that after the last meeting, to see if there was a really the problem of ownership on that property, and they related to me the same information. So I'm okay with that. If there's nothing else, we'll bring it to the vote and finalize this. So everybody in favor? All right, pass. We're all set. We're ready for adjournment. Do I get a mover?
I'm just gonna pick a date here. We're gonna go, I just wanna make sure we don't have any stat holidays or anything at the next proposed date. We are, what are we? No, it's the clock. We need a calendar. So that would be April. Okay, so April, yes, Easter is on the
First
weekend of the 7th and 10th, I believe.
Yep.
So that would put us on the 11th. That would be the day after Easter Monday. It's good with that?
Yep.
Okay, so April 11th, mover and seconder, please.
Mr. Ruck and Mr. Jonathan.
Wait,
It is
it's my
not-
part.
Close
out.
Yeah.
It is moved by Roxanne Louis and seconded by Jonathan Sandiford. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment meeting held on March the 14th, 2023 be adjourned.
To April 11th. Thank you, everybody.
And we have to vote on that?
We can vote. Everybody had agreed.
Thanks, Don.
Is there a quick question? Is there a planning meeting on that same day?
I believe there will be, yes.
Okay,
I have
right.
applications in the drawer, yes. I have 2 zoning amendments in the drawer, so yes, there will be. So Committee of Adjustment will be later, planning will be at 6.
perfect. Thank
And
you,
you'll be back
everybody.
you'll be back from Florida?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
You can check out our new council chambers.
I can see that's very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got no
Very
drawers
nice.
though.
There's nowhere,
No.
there's nowhere for snacks.
Nowhere to hide our cookies.
You're telling us you're not wearing drawers?
Thanks.
Well, we're still live.
Okay.
We're still live.